We're continuing our conversation with World War II veterans, and I'm very excited today to have Mr. Jim Moncrief. How are you doing today, sir?
Very fine.
Very good. Tell me a little bit about your history. Where were you born? Where were you raised?
I'm a native Georgian, born in Manchester, Georgia, June the 7th, 1912. In another month, I'll be 99 years old.
99 years old. I understand you drove today to the Rotary Club here.
You what?
Did you drive yourself today to the Rotary Club?
Yes.
I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed. Tell me this. December the 7th, 1941. What was your life like? What were you doing?
I was on leave of absence from the 2nd Armored Division that was commanded by Brigadier General George Patton. I happened to be at home on I wasn't married at that time, and my mother was quite distressed that she knew that I was going to have to go to war. But I reported to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the Commanding General Staff College, Tuesday morning after December the 7th. And from then on, I was in the 6th Armored Division during the war.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long were you stateside, and when did you transport over to Europe?
Went in Europe, I went into England in March or so, 1944, and then we went into the beat after the. I wasn't there to be on D-Day. I was in an armored division, and you have to have a little space to maneuver an armored division, and so they weren't deployed until later during the war. Went in on about the 12th day after June the 6th, 12th or 13th day, I forgot. With Patton's army hadn't been activated. I was in Patton's army. The 6th Army was in Patton's army. We went in and off the beaches. Our first mission was to capture Brest. Later on, it took about 3 infantry divisions and 4 or 5 battalions of artillery to capture Brest. So fortunately, we didn't. My division was deviated from the Brest campaign, and then the war started taking place back east into the Germany.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how many days after D-Day did you find yourself on French soil?
On what?
In France.
Oh, it was around the 1st of July.
1st of July. So that was about 15 to 20 days after D-Day. What was France like? And I will tell you something you'll find interesting. I spent 2.5 weeks last August in Normandy, and I actually got to see the General Patton statuette there where he's wearing the football helmet, and I can't remember the name of the town, but there's actually a monument to General Patton. What was the landscape like following D-Day there in France?
Well, on the beach it was pretty rough. I mean, it had been torn apart. But after you got in a little ways into France, there was no real disturbance to the countryside.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you come onto the beach? Is that how you got onto?
Yeah.
You came onto the beach. So I'm guessing that you. Where did you leave in England to make your way to the Normandy coast? Where were you stationed there in England?
Well, we were stationed in the Linwood Forest area. We went out of, I forgot, Liverpool, I think, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How many days into the experience in France did you experience combat?
Well, I was there from the time we landed until after Bastogne, which was 1st of January, around the 1st of January 44.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I read when I was doing some of the research about Patton, the Third Army had only one general order from Patton: seek out the enemy, trap him, and destroy him. Now, I've seen the movie Patton. I would like you, I understand that you actually had an opportunity to rub elbows with the general. I would like for you to tell us how much that movie was a representation of who Patton really was.
It was really a good representation, except for one thing. George Scott, I believe was the guy's name, the actor. He could not portray Patton's voice. Patton had a very high-pitched voice, and Scott couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the picture was very, very realistic.
Mm-hmm. What was your experience with him, person to person and face to face? Are there any stories to where you had the experience to be?
A better way of saying all that is, yes, I had many personal run-ins with Patton, rather than the experiences. For example, the first one I can remember was in the Louisiana maneuvers, when again he was a brigadier general commanding the division. At this time with the maneuvers, he was trying to sell the Department of the Army and the powers to be on the use of tanks, because Hitler, with his Panzer outfits, had realized some success, and Patton was using this as a tool to promote tanks. Well, on the Louisiana maneuvers, I was liaison officer for my regiment, the 67th Armored Regiment, to division headquarters. And as liaison officer, you sit right next to the G3 map, waiting for information to come up on come in and being posted to the map so that you can relay it to your regimental commander. Well, I was a good liaison officer. I was sitting right in front of the map. Something came up and Patton said, "Get this to Newhauser." Well, Newhauser commanded the 41st Infantry Regiment, and he wasn't my regiment. But anyhow, Patton said, "Give this to this lieutenant. Here, Lieutenant, you get on that motorcycle and take this to Patton, to Newhauser." Well, of course, I was trained to ride a motorcycle. I knew all about a motorcycle. But I began to stutter and said, "But sir, I don't give a damn where you're from. Get on this motorcycle and take it to Newhauser." So I got it on without further hesitation. I took the overlay and information and got on a motorcycle and didn't know exactly where Newhauser's headquarters was, but had an idea. Anyhow, to get out of the CP command post of the headquarters, of Patton's headquarters, I had to maneuver around some gravel road. Well, I don't know how many of you know much about riding motorcycles, but gravel roads is pretty treacherous. So as I went to make a curve, my motorcycle ran away from me. And I took an awful spill. And I got up, blood was spilling down my leg into my boots. Patton yelled, "Get another one, get another one." I don't mean motorcycle, I mean lieutenant.
So the question is, did you make the trip?
No.
Well, the movie portrays Patton to be a high-strung, high-tempered, foul-mouthed general. Is that an accurate portrayal?
It's exactly true.
Mm-hmm.
Very foul-mouthed.
Now, I understand that a lot of the soldiers had either a love or a hate relationship. As you look back on your experience, what is your opinion now that we're looking back?
I have a great admiration for him as a soldier. And I don't think we would have got as far along as quick as we did in the war had it not been for Patton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Patton started out in Africa, made his way to Sicily, and then that's when he went on to the shores of France. Were you in North Africa or in Sicily?
I was neither.
You were neither.
I was still back in the States.
Combat. Were you in the tanks? Tell me what you were in terms of your position in the battle.
I was personnel officer of the division, which was not a combat shooting soldier, because as a staff officer, you don't have those kinds of jobs. My job had to do with personnel. Everything in the division dealing with people, I was concerned about. And as a staff officer, I had authority to deal in the name of my general, who was my division commander was General Grow, Grow. So I was a staff officer of General Grow.
So how long, tell me the time frame from, I'm assuming that if you were in France in July, and that was 44, by December, were you in Belgium?
Was I where?
In Belgium?
Yeah.
You had made it to Belgium. Was that a rough winter?
You put it very mildly. I never expect to experience weather like I did then. I've had more than my share of cold weather.
A lot of the veterans that I have spoken to that participated in the Battle of the Bulge, they all tell me that they hate winter.
Yeah.
They tell me that they experience such cold, treacherous winter that they hate winter.
Well, it was a terrible, terrible winter. We would get an order to move from point A to point B somewhere, and the tanks would get on the streets and just spin. It was so icy. It was bitter cold.
In war, there's death. And I am certain that Patton's Third Army saw its share of blood, guts, and death. Did you have any close friends, people that you were very close with that lost their life?
Oh, yes.
Tell us what that's like to be. How old were you in 44? How old were you? I'm doing the math here. Were you 30?
I was about 30.
What's it like for a 30-year-old to see death all around them?
Well, you sort of get used to it after a little bit, where you see dead soldiers on the side of the road, and it doesn't make near the impression on you as it did when you first went into combat. And part of my job was to oversee the evacuation of the deceased, the dead. And it wasn't a very pleasant job, because sometimes they weren't found, and the bodies were just not in good shape. So it was not a very pleasant job.
Death was a daily part of life, I imagine. Well, how often did you have, as I call it, elbow room with General Patton when you were in Europe? Was that a daily experience?
No. He commanded an army. I was in a division headquarters. I was in one of the divisions which, he had two armored divisions, the 4th and the 6th, which were prongs for his main attack across Europe. But I was not in daily contact with him, no. Now, I was in daily contact with the G1 of the 6th Army, of the 3rd Army, but not with the commander himself.
What was the living arrangements like while you were over there? When I see the movie, I can't help, I think of the soldiers that are walking in the snow beside the tanks, and I often wondered, where did they sleep at night? I mean, how did they find rest?
Well, got no rest. Usually in a bunk, bedroll they had, which was wadded up in the tank or half-track. And later on during the war, we confiscated billets, and we lived in homes, but that was later. Wasn't during the Battle of Bulge.
I spoke to a gentleman from Davie County who was a prisoner of war. He was caught by the Germans about 7 or 8 days after he stormed Utah, and he expressed to me that even to this day, and keep in mind he was in prison for 9 months, lost 90 pounds, that he holds animosity towards the Germans. It's 2011 today. Back then, it was your objective to seek out the enemy, trap him, and destroy him. How do you look at the Germans today?
I don't really have any animosity towards the Germans today. The Germans were obeying what their leader was trying to get to do. And that leader was a SOB named Hitler. But I don't have any real animosity to the Germans.
Mm-hmm. If I asked you to pick one day or one experience out of your time in Europe that really sticks out in your mind, could you share that with us? Just an event that happened while you were over there that really...
Yeah, it was the capture of Buchenwald. My division discovered it and got official credit for liberating Buchenwald. Buchenwald had about 20,000 Jewish prisoners. And when it was liberated, I got word over the division headquarters of the network that discovered this camp. And I was there within about 2 hours after it was discovered. And I saw dead bodies laying all around all over the place. So my recollection of that is the most outstanding thing that happened that I can recall.
Mm-hmm. You know, I can't help but think when a gentleman like yourself pledges allegiance to the flag, it means a tremendous amount. And for my generation, and certainly we have people my age who are in Afghanistan and Iraq, but without a doubt, every veteran that has taken up arms for our nation, that's why we do this. We appreciate you and your service so much, because I am fully convinced that it is the World War II veterans that really saved our world. Our world would have been completely different had Japan and Germany won World War II. Let's talk about Belgium. Battling Bastards of Bastogne. Let's talk about those two subjects. Tell me about your experience in Belgium. Did you participate in the Ardennes Offensive, otherwise known as Battle of the Bulge?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I was in Patton's Third Army. Patton's Third Army was down in France, about to go into, I forgot the name of the city. Anyhow, word had already been, it wasn't just the word, you could see it. The Germans had already started an attack towards the east. And Patton was about half alerted before he got official orders about, look, he may be called to go up there. But he was ordered to go north, and we went north in the 6th Armored Division, being part of Patton's army, went north out of the France campaign into the Battle of the Bulge. And we severed the line between, in other words, we got to the rear of the German army, so that the German army was cut off into Bastogne.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that we lost more soldiers in the Battle of the Bulge than any other battle in World War II. Is that your recollection?
I know we lost a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was the most.
Here's one of the things that I ask all of our veterans. It's 2011. You've already expressed to us that you're 79 years old. Is that right? You're 99 years old.
Yeah.
Chances are 25 years from now, you're probably going to be deceased. I'm probably going to be deceased. If you had an opportunity to speak to the upcoming generation and tell them about World War II, what would you tell them about that experience and about how it shaped American history?
Well, I'd have to say that it was the greatest. Tom Brokaw gave it the name, called it the greatest, I believe, and I'd have to underscore that. I think it was the greatest generation. We took on a burden, the generation did, and accomplished our mission.
Where were you the day of the atomic bomb? Were you still in Europe?
Gee, at the moment I can't recall.
Here's another question that I ask a lot of people. I actually visited the Truman Library, and they have a wall to where you can write if you think it was the right thing to do or an atrocity. What would you tell this generation about dropping the atomic bomb on Japan to end World War II?
Well, I'd have to say it was a great thing, because we, at the time, we thought, my division thought after the war in Europe, we thought we were going to be sent to Japan. So at the time when the atomic bomb came on, I was happy. I thought it was a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, my division was sweating it out, so to speak,
mm-hmm.
going to Japan. And General Patton, who'd been to the States on a bond-raising campaign after the war was over in Europe, came back to Europe, and he was at my division headquarters for dinner. Well, when he came to the division headquarters, he ate the general's mess. So did I. So I was at the same table with General Patton when he came back, and the expression came up about Japan and how we were sweating it out, and he said, "No, ain't no way you're going." He had been briefed about the atomic bomb, but he couldn't tell us about it. But he had been briefed. He said, "No, you won't be going."
Mm-hmm. Tell us about leaving Europe and going home. I'm assuming, did you come home on a ship?
Yeah.
Was that a celebratory trip across the Atlantic?
Oh, what?
Was it celebration? Was it excitement?
Oh, very exciting when we came into New York. And then the troop trains took us all the way we were going. And so I got a troop train into Georgia, and my wife met me in Augusta, Georgia.
What was that like to see your wife?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. And we'd had a daughter that was born in March of '44, and I hadn't seen. So now it was in September '44. So I saw my little daughter the first time. Very, very exciting.
I'm sure that was an emotional experience.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing with us these stories, and I am so excited to be able to talk with someone who was part of Patton's group. And as you look back on that time, I want you to realize that there is a generation who has kind of become awakened. The United States placed our monument there in the mall in 2004. It was dedicated. And I'm assuming you've been to the memorial there in Washington?
No, I haven't.
We need to get you there. It is a beautiful memorial, and it is the story, it is your story. And on behalf of, I'm certain, this group, and on behalf of all Americans, I want to thank you for your service, and I want to tell you God bless you, and I appreciate your time. Look at there, standing ovation.